The Government of Belize is working to develop a national enforcement and conservation monitoring strategy for the country's blue spaces. The current enforcement and conservation strategy was put in place for a period of 5 years, starting in 2013. That strategy is long outdated, so fisheries stakeholders have been meeting in Belize City to discuss existing threats to Belize's marine ecosystem and ways to address those threats. We spoke with Kennedy Carrillo, the Chief Executive Officer in the Ministry of Blue Economy.
I think many times one of the misinformations that is out there is that our country is in danger, that our fisheries stock are in danger. If you speak to any of these stakeholders, they will tell you that they understand that this is definitely not true. But in addition to that, they understand the important role of the Fisheries Department in ensuring that there is proper management of the stock. When we look, for example, at the blue bonds, this blue bonds agreement provides a country with an opportunity to continue to conserve, to continue to be champions of conservation of our marine biodiversity. But it also provides us with an opportunity to find that balance, that important balance between, yes, we want to conserve, but we also want to ensure that we are prioritizing livelihoods of communities that have been dependent on our resources for many, many years, and to look at how a new ministry such as the Blue Economy can do this in a manner that is sustainable, responsible, but also inclusive.
We also heard from Rigoberto Quintana, the Acting Fisheries Administrator in the Fisheries Department. Quintana explained that one of Belize's commitments under the Blue Bond is to expand biodiversity protection areas. But with expanded conservation areas comes the need for a greater enforcement presence.
One of the primary areas, as you know, under the conservation commitments under the Blue Bond, we have been expanding to have more biodiversity protection areas, and we need to have more enforcement presence in those areas. That's why we're collaborating with our partners, the Belize Coast Guard, for example. They're getting more enforcement capabilities in terms of area surveillance. And that is one of the areas that will be integrated in this strategy to look at the use of modern technologies for enforcement.
As it currently stands, out of these myriad of issues, what's the greatest threat to fisheries in Belize at this point?
I think you have to look at coastal development activities, climate change impacts also, and to some extent, I would say the illegal movement of products to our neighboring countries.
On the enforcement front, the Belize Coast Guard works closely with the Fisheries Department. Rear Admiral Elton Bennett, the commandant of the Belize Coast Guard, says that Coast Guard officers are equipped to identify fisheries infractions and make detentions. Today, the Belize Coast Guard announced that they are set to receive 4 military-classified drones to increase their aerial enforcement capacity.
One of those gaps is the air domain. We've always been challenged with the absence of surveillance in our sea spaces, particularly our area of interest, for the most part, is along the border regions. Belize, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, Belize, Mexican border, where enforcement is difficult for us. So we've identified the need to develop air capability, and that's what we're doing through the Blue Bond program, through the government strategic allocation. We have been allocated funds to acquire unmanned air vehicles. So that will be able to deliver a lot of these capability needs in order to manage our blue spaces to the best of our ability. So we are acquiring those drones. 2 should be in country by next week, and the following 2 should be in country later on this year. That would give us some very interesting capability. We're looking at UAVs that can do well up to 5 hours of flying time, UAV that can fly up to 13,000 feet, and it can do up to 100-kilometer range.
And if there are any questions as to whether the contributions made by stakeholders during these workshops will materialize into a practical national enforcement and conservation strategy, Belisario Carballo, a technical officer within the Blue Bond unit, says the directives to undertake this process came from Prime Minister John Briceño.
This is a two-day workshop that we're having here and really will provide the context to support the development of this national strategy that we want to see and action plan. As you mentioned, we want to make sure it's actionable. And then when we get out of this, we work directly with our partners, those that, like I said, are legally mandated to enforce this. And along with other support from our other agencies, we have support from the Belize Fund as well too, and from the Nature Conservancy. They're providing their technical and financial support as well with our various different partners. And as I mentioned here, it really is, we're looking at to strengthen the effectiveness and efficiency of fisheries enforcement and monitoring that will benefit for our beneficial oceans, for the benefit of both nature and people. Key to this is not just the protection, as we mentioned, but really to secure the livelihoods of all Belizeans. So there is very much support at the highest level of government, I can assure you, that we will follow through with this plan.
Reporting for News 5, I am Paul Lopez.